Wrong button. So there I was, coming back from a successful manticore hunt on Ark Scorched Earth, and as I was placing the heads of my victims on the wall, which is pretty typical for Ark survivors, apparently everybody needs to cut off the heads of their unwilling victims. I started thinking, you know, why did I have to kill them? Why did I have to do stuff like that? Why did we... I mean, I went through the game and I played it and I beat up bad things and I tamed things, but why? That got me thinking. And then I remembered back to this one time when I was out in the desert. I was out in the high desert. I was just trying to find a nice spot to kind of chill out a little bit so I could go make a cup of coffee in between going and farming wyverns over in the trench. And then I saw it, an XP box. And I went up to it.
Confound those confused contraptions. Despite my best efforts, I could make neither heads nor tails of the mysterious machine that brought me here. If only I still had that jittery, bespectacled assistant of mine from all those years ago. What was his name? Gerald? Geronde? The one that loved tinkering with the devices we'd salvaged from the arms of the island's less fortunate inhabitants. Good lad. The inscriptions he found on the inside of those little trinkets were where I first saw the word Ark, as I recall. Shame about the incident with the Compsognathus. If I still had his services, perhaps I'd never be in this godforsaken desert. Oh well. Stiff upper lip, Rockwell. Make the best of it.
And after that, I made myself a cup of coffee, and I just kind of chilled out a little bit. And then I set the footage off to the side, and I kind of just forgot about it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe eventually we'll come back here and do this. And then I got to thinking, after beating the manticore, why did I beat the manticore? So, I think today, we're going to follow that guy. Because he left a bunch of notes all around the map. I want to figure out what makes this guy tick. So, this isn't really, well, it could be lost footage. I did lose it for a little bit when I misplaced the folder at one particular time. But, that's neither here nor there. We'll call it the lost footage because this guy's got a message to send us. Let's find out what it is. Once I had set my mind to it, it wasn't long before I actually went out and found another one.
Right then, now that I have found a shady spot where I can enjoy a brief respite from this desert's dreadful heat, it's high time that I set some goals for this expedition. If I wander about aimlessly, then I'm sure to meet the same fate as poor Gerald. First, I shall find a local tribe, if for no other reason than to obtain a proper mount and supplies. Second, I simply must learn more about that strange metal that lined the walls of the sanctuary. Even with a cursory study, I could tell that it possesses wondrous properties. But where can I find more of it?
Okay, so I pretty much have a feeling this guy just got his first sight of element. So, yeah, we've got to figure out what this guy was up to. Eventually, I was brought over to the arena where, well, apparently they idolized the thing which head is now hanging on my wall. But, nevertheless, set about getting down here, taking a look.
I must say, nothing reminds a man of his own mortality quite like a desolate wasteland. As a strapping young lad, I could have survived alone in this desert for years. Why, on one occasion, I fought off a Bengal tiger with naught but an empty flask and my favourite pipe. With this makeshift spear, the beasts of this land would never have a prayer. Yet in my old age, I can feel this damnable sun sapping my strength with every minute I spend under its unforgiving gaze. Each day I cover less ground than the day before. I must find civilization soon, no matter how primitive. Without the right tools and supplies, I fear that this expedition will be incredibly short-lived.
All right, so they didn't stay at the arena for too long. I would have figured they would have. It looks like somebody could have lived here. Yeah, I'm thinking somebody did at one point in time live here. Yeah, we gotta find out more about this guy. Alright, upon landing at our next location, I immediately set about laying waste to all the local wildlife, which is something that you do in this harsh environment, because this stuff wants to eat you very quickly.
Eureka! At last I have found signs of human life. This afternoon I came across a fresh series of footprints, some from humans and some from, what I assume, are large beasts of burden. I cannot be sure who made them or how civilized they may be, but neither can I afford to be too particular in my choice of saviors. Whoever they are, I must track them down immediately. As soon as I gather my strength, I shall pursue my quarry with the utmost haste and vigor. The tale of the brilliant and impeccably groomed Sir Edmund Rockwell shall not end this day.
My God, it's a bug! This guy's eating me. How much damage? All right. Well, see, like I said, this stuff wants to eat you. It wants to eat you really quick. My God. You're going to repair that armor, dude. I'm going to use your bits and repair it. I'll weave the chitin into silk, I swear. All right. More on this guy. All right, this time it wasn't just a little tiny bug that came out to say hi. It was all the bugs. Nevertheless, we laid claim to the oasis and decided we were going to sit down for a nice cup of tea and listen to this wonderful gentleman that we tracked down.
Salvation, thy name is Prophet's Rest. After a proper meal and some time out of the sun, the makeshift fortress doesn't look half as grand as its name might imply. Yet, when I first sighted its walls from across the dunes, it may as well have been El Dorado itself, so grateful was I to find it. Thus far, I have seen little of the inhabitants, but they seem a hospitable sort. I've been given food, shelter, and even a wet cloth to clean myself with. Quite generous of them, considering how scarce water is in these lands. Their clothing is a curiosity, however. Those robes seem more ceremonial than functional.
All right, so seems that the guy we've been following has found himself a cult in the desert. All right, let's go see if we can join. We eventually moved out of the Badlands and into, well, it's rather lush here.
It seems that Prophet's Rest is less a fortress and more an enclave or monastery. I suppose that would explain the name, now wouldn't it? Yet as strange as it may sound, the natives have created a primitive religion centered around the Ark's obelisks. They pray 3 times a day, each time facing a different obelisk, and their robes bear a unique symbol. A 3-pointed star coloured red, green, and blue. The blue obelisk appears to receive particular reverence due to its proximity. As charmingly ignorant as their superstitions may be, it's far from the most savage religion I've encountered. Besides, Prophet's Rest is in need of a doctor, and I am in need of supplies.
All right, sounds like he actually hooked up with some people that give him a little help. Win-win, right? Yeah, let's find out what else this guy's getting up to. Growing more and more fond of this guy every time I talk to him. Seems this time the doctor's found himself inside of a cave. So we do what we normally do, went about setting, well, a little bit of fire to the locals, but in the form of thylabites.
I have discovered why Prophet's Rest is so generous with their water. The well at the edge of the compound is built directly on top of what the locals call a water vein. An endless supply of water bubbles up from beneath the earth. Its existence is a minor miracle, though compared to what I saw in the Starlit Sanctuary, minor is the operative word. I suppose this ark must be floating among the stars, just as the island was. What an extraordinary thought. I cannot fathom how such a thing is possible, but that remarkable metal must be at the heart of it. I am certain.
All right, so... yeah, he's figuring things out. Now I gotta get out of here and go repair my gear. Alright, once all the gear was finally repaired and I was back up and ready to go, we decided to head back out. Once again, we were back out into the high desert. Make sure there's no bugs around here. Snakes wandering in the distance.
Most of my work as the monastery's doctor has been trivial. Every now and then one of the guards gets injured by the local wildlife, but I usually find myself treating heat stroke and common illnesses. As such, I have had plenty of time to learn all the priests know about the obelisks. All told, they are stunningly ill-informed about the literal pillars of their faith. They are unaware that the obelisks are actually devices that can be activated, and needless to say, they have never activated one themselves. They showed a flicker of understanding when I described the artifacts I found on the island, however. I shall have to keep digging.
Starting to figure out a whole bunch of stuff. Oh man, is this what's been keeping me up late at night? As I sit and I wonder, what were the artifacts? Who is this guy? Why did he go into that cave? And what kind of things could he have to cure as a doctor? What kind of transmitted diseases were here? I only had more questions than answers. We need these. Yep. Time to go back to sleep and dream again about as the doctor turns. We'll figure this out. Seems this time the doctor had found himself over by the obelisk. Is he going to figure out what's going on? Was he up top or was he down below?
Unbelievable. Have these idol-worshipping ninnies replaced all their common sense with blind devotion? Have years of oppressive heat completely addled their brains? I was finally allowed to see the monastery's inner sanctum, and lo and behold, there they were. Sitting upon an altar before a flock of protesting primitives were these glowing artifacts, just like the ones I had found in the caverns beneath the island. Yet, instead of making use of them, or even studying them, these half-wits are praying to them. The true value of those artifacts is completely lost on these simpletons. Sacred relics, indeed.
Okay. Seems like he's got himself a full set of artifacts. Let's find out what happens next. As I approached the next one, I was really torn. It said, don't pray to the artifacts. I've been cuddling with mine every night, so I wonder if that is allowed. I mean...
It took time, but I finally pilfered enough supplies and tools to survive on my own. Loading them onto these camel-like beasts of burden was laborious, but the real trial was absconding with the artifacts. There is always someone watching the inner sanctum, so I carefully studied the guard shifts until I identified whose drink I had to spoil with my knockout serum. Even then, I acted with great haste and guile, for my heist will surely be discovered when the priests convene for their morning prayers. Alas, they will be too late. Sir Edmund Rockwell is always ahead of his foes, but not by a mere step. No, I am miles and miles beyond their reach.
Sounds like he might have the same idea I did. Oh, man. Both of us went to sleep cuddling the artifacts? Oh, man. Yeah. This is where things are starting to spice up a little bit. Validation! Alright. This time I followed the man. Or the doctor. Or the who. Inside of ruins that had bad steps.
It has been several days since I left Prophet's Rest, and I have seen no sign of pursuit. I am unsurprised. They probably assumed that I would make for the blue obelisk as it was nearest. By setting out for the green obelisk instead, I already outwitted those simple-minded zealots. As I said, miles ahead. Miles. With those fools out of the way, I can slow my pace and take some time to properly study these so-called sacred relics of theirs. I am curious to see if the materials they are made of bear any similarity to the metal in the Starlit Sanctuary.
Alright, so he left from Prophet's Rest, and they thought he was heading there, but he went to the green. I have a feeling our next one may be a little bit over there. Appears the good doctor didn't make it too far.
The obelisk is reacting to the presence of the artifacts with even more intensity than I expected. Each obelisk on the island required 8 artifacts to generate that sort of response, not 3. In other words, I may not need to do any spelunking before summoning whatever terrifying beast this ark has in store for me. Ah, the beast. Now that poses an entirely different conundrum. Even with my youth and my favorite pipe, I doubt that I could slay a monster such as that dragon Mr. Nerva fought. Not alone, anyway. I shall need to find a partner for this venture. But who?
Partner. I've been dependent on Phoo, so that's working out for me. Let's see, our good doctor has found himself over here underneath this area.
I have turned back north in the hope of making contact with some of the natives. It is a risk, as I cannot be sure how many bumbling savages are under the sway of that ludicrous obelisk-worshipping cult, but it is also the only region that I definitively know is occupied. I do not have much to offer in exchange for their aid, but I am sure that I can negotiate an alliance with at least one of this ark's tribes. I was at the center of the island's diplomatic disputes for years, after all. Why, I am a seasoned, silver-tongued negotiator. Surely I can coax a partnership out of these primitive desert dwellers.
He doesn't think too highly of these guys, but then again... I'm very, very curious to find out who he gets to go with him. Pretty sure it wasn't that guy. And once again, he's found himself in some dangerous water. Well, sand and rocks. But he's right in the middle of the Violet Triangle this time. We're looking the green off.
What terrible misfortune! My keen sense of direction finally led me to a local settlement, but as it happened, I was not the first party to visit it that day. That honor belonged to the Burning Phoenix clan, a band of raiders that were plundering its storehouses and enslaving its surviving residents as I arrived. Naturally, the hoodlums fell upon me and stripped me of my valuables within minutes of my arrival. Ruffians! I managed to keep hold of my journal, but little else. This won't do, not at all. Then again, I was seeking out a tribe skilled in the art of violence. Perhaps I can turn this to my advantage.
Hey! turning the Burning Phoenix clan into your army? Oh man, things are starting to heat up. They're like a ripe soap opera. Oh man. I'm gonna go cuddle with my artifacts. Looks like we tracked him down to the Burning Phoenix.
Curse these stubborn brutes. Despite a litany of polite, gentlemanly requests, they refuse to allow me to parley with their leader. Surely any leader of men is not half the imbecile that these barbarians are. I am positive that we could come to some sort of... Oh, damn this noise! It is impossible to concentrate with all this insufferable whinging. Half of these prisoners won't stop moaning about one injury or another, and the other half are in constant hysterics. Very well. Perhaps if I tend to some of the wounded, it will dim this distracting cacophony.
Also might give you a way in, dude. Oh, man. At the base of the mountain is where I found his next entry.
At last, I can hear myself think. The guards have moved me to a private cell, and while they have not divulged the reason for my transfer, I suspect that they took notice of my medical expertise. I caught them staring in my direction on several occasions as I worked. It seems that doctors are in high demand in these lands. I suppose that's no great surprise. The island was no different. No matter. While my skills in the realm of medicine are more in line with a field medic than a true physician, I shall continue to play the role as long as it serves me.
And with the sun bearing down on me, I found my way to his next entry.
After days of travel, we finally arrived at the Burning Phoenix clan's compound. And while my former peers were shuffled to the slave pens, I stood before the clan's leader. I'd heard tales of the once great Tatar empires, though I had never traveled to their lands. By all appearances, Timur is cut from the same cloth as their fabled Khans. He was at once imperious and casual, questioning me with impatience from a throne of hide and bone. Naturally, he was impressed by my intellect and gentlemanly demeanor. Granted, he did not say so aloud, but I was escorted to a small private chamber instead of a cell. Surely, that says as much.
Oh man. This is where they hold up, huh? Yeah, even Phoo enjoyed it. That had to be where they placed the throne. The next entry for our good doctor I found was out in the middle of the wilds. Out in the high desert again. I thought he'd moved out of here.
I had been pondering why Timur required the services of a doctor. He seemed to be in excellent health, and I had seen no patients since I arrived. Well, now I shall ponder no longer. Timur has a wife, and she's with child. I suppose that even bloodthirsty raiders can fall in love, or at the very least, desire a family. The whole affair would be rather quaint were I not expected to care for the woman and deliver the child. Should either the child or the woman die during the birth, I fear that I will follow them in short order.
Okay. So raider captains can want for something a little bit different. This is interesting. Let's get out of this desert. Wasn't long before I found the next entry. Way here in the middle of the Scorched Earth.
Nazreen is quite different from her husband. She's a timid little flower of a woman, or rather, she would be if she were not many months pregnant. I'm still undecided as to whether my timing is impeccable or unfortunate. A few weeks from now, Timur may have had no need of a doctor, but as it stands, I have been thrust into an unfamiliar scenario with scant time to prepare. Despite my unpleasant circumstances, this whole affair is rather intriguing. I never considered the possibility of new generations being born on the Ark, yet clearly it was inevitable. Like any common animal, humans have the urge to procreate. How else could the species endure?
I found the next one. In the mesa close to the green obelisk as Phoo started to go off.
Rockwell, old bean, you've done it again. Both mother and child made it through. Timur is a proud father, and your head is still attached to its shoulders. Why, I was even a guest of honor at Timur's celebratory feast. I cannot say I enjoyed the blood sport that serves as the burning phoenix's entertainment, but the food was delectable. I was also sure to seize upon Timur's momentary goodwill by filling his ears with whispers of obelisks, artifacts, and the untold power they grant to mortal men. It may take time for those thoughts to turn to action, but with constant care, I may yet turn him into my unwitting general.
Sowing the seeds. That's good. Oh, man. And now our travels have brought us right back out here. May have to get a little creative on this one again.
The silver tongue of Sir Edmund Rockwell has prevailed once again. After spending far too long watching the burning phoenix enslave and decimate hapless caravans and villages, I have convinced Timur to test his might against the guardian of the obelisk. I admit, I am somewhat anxious. Timur is not the commander that Mr. Nerva was, and should he fall, I shall fall with him. Yet I have little choice, and the rewards of success are worth the risk. The obelisks, the starlit sanctuary, and that precious ore shall be the foundation of my legacy as a scientist, gentleman, and explorer. I am sure of it.
I'm sensing boss fight soon. Oh, man. Apparently the next one is just right next door. Here we go.
I found it. I really found it. Raw, untainted samples of that same mysterious ore from the sanctuary. That fearsome beast must have been guarding it. Thank the heavens for Timur and his berserk savagery. When he leapt from the back of his wyvern, I thought he was surely doomed. But the madman actually managed to grab hold of that monster's horns and turn its eyes into a bloody mess. I have never seen such brutally effective barbarism. Many of his band did not survive the encounter, of course, but that was to be expected. Progress requires sacrifice. And whether those brutes knew it or not, their deaths have helped humanity leap into the future.
Wyvern wrangling. Sounds exciting. His path has brought me back out here into the high desert again.
This ore is simply extraordinary. It is warm to the touch, even during these cold desert nights, and it pulses as though it has its own heartbeat. It is at once light and more sturdy than any natural material I have encountered. The uses one could find for such a substance. I shall have to name it at some point. What would do? Rockwellium? Edmundium? A dilemma for another time. For now, I have more pressing matters. Timur and his burning phoenix savages have played their part, and I cannot remain in their custody. It is time for the great warrior chief to receive his just reward.
So I was right. Cuddling with it is the proper way of handling it. Oh, man. And following his journey has brought me back out here once again.
Alas, poor Timur. He was so focused on celebrating his victory over one foe that he never saw his greatest threat. Now he lies beneath the severed head of the beast he vanquished, eyes bulging and blood seeping from his open mouth. At least, that is how I imagine him. I did not stay to admire my handiwork. As soon as the first group of burning Phoenix warriors succumbed to their poisoned feast, I stole away into the night, Edmundium and artifact in tow. Serves those ruffians right, I say. They never did treat me with the propriety that a gentleman and scholar of my caliber deserves. This desert is better off without them.
They ate the manticore. Now I want some. It's gonna kill us though, right? This is how Edmundium gets named. There were times where I felt like I was chasing him down, almost like hunting down Obi-Wan. But we got him. Found
As
his
my
shack.
withdrawal from the burning Phoenix's camp demanded haste, I did not have the time to double-check my supplies. It appears that I shall have to do some hunting. No matter. I may not be as spry as I was when I felled the charging rhino on the plains of the Serengeti, but with the small armory I managed to abscond with, I can surely manage. I had planned on trading those weapons for information as soon as I encountered a peaceful tribe, but I can spare a few rounds of ammunition.
Dinner time. Nice little shack, though. And this one took me a little bit to find. Oh, seems as if almost like the good doctor doesn't want to be seen today.
Despite my limited equipment, I have managed to run some initial tests on the Edmundium. Based on my observations, a typical forge may not be enough to smelt a sample of Edmundium ore into any sort of usable ingot. I suspect that it has extremely strong metallic bonds, and therefore a much higher melting point than any conventional metallic element. I must find a proper base of operations where I can run more extensive experiments. I mustn't be overeager, however. I have limited samples and... Drat! I shall have to ruminate on this later. A sandstorm may be brewing, and I have no desire to be caught in it.
Oh, man. They even had him back then. We'll be fine. Down here in the base of the water. Is this where the sandstorm drove him to?
Confounded weather. Not only did that sandstorm separate me from my steed, but when it cleared, I was beset upon by none other than the traitorous Miss Walker herself. Oh, she put on quite the act, spouting all sorts of nonsense about how good it was to see me. Rubbish. I see right through her ruse. I am certain that she is after my Edmundium. The only reason she has not simply looted it from my corpse is that she requires my superior intellect to understand it. Well, two can play this game, Miss Walker. I can fill the role of the benign old scientist for a time, but I shall not be betrayed again.
Nice little twist there. Meeting up with Walker. In my travels following this, I have realized that capros may actually have a heart, and lungs, and liver, and they're all delicious. I feel this guy may be getting to me in weird ways.
I am glad that I possessed the foresight to hide my presence from Miss Walker after her capture on the island. She clearly believes that I never learned of her betrayal. By cunningly taking advantage of this fact, I have managed to completely deceive the deceiver. The grim old bat she travels with is another matter. I often catch her glaring in my direction, her eyes sharp and mistrusting. If I could, I would deal with her as I dealt with Timur. But I fear she is far too observant. For now, I must maintain my deception as best I can.
It's gonna get a little bit tricky. At least I think so. Ah, it's another Capro. These things are really tasty. Alright, this guy may be getting to me. A little bit. Just a bit. And once again, in the shadow of the blue obelisk, we encountered our little friend again.
I may have given Miss Walker too much credit. Although I carelessly allowed her to catch sight of my Edmundium ore samples, she was more interested in the artifact I possess. I should have realized this sooner. Miss Walker's specialty is biology. She would not recognize the unique properties of Edmundium if they hit her square in the forehead. That fact has eased some of my tension. Even if Miss Walker seeks to take advantage of my genius, she is focusing on the wrong discoveries. So long as I am careful in my studies of Edmundium, I shall remain miles ahead.
I know, right? Alright, is this how it ends? How does it end? This is the final one.
I cannot wait to be rid of that glowering menace of a woman, this so-called Wali al-Aswad. I suspect the feeling is mutual. She has offered little in the way of farewells, while seeing us to this ark's entrance to the starlit sanctuary. Things will be much easier once Miss Walker and I have parted ways with the Desert Witch, I suspect. Miss Walker is thoroughly oblivious to both the wonders of Edmundium and my knowledge of her underhanded scheming back on the island. She can continue to fiddle with trinkets and relics. I may even assist her if it suits me. Meanwhile, I shall unlock the secrets of the most extraordinary element in the universe right under her nose.
Oh, that is great. And that is the final one for Scorched Earth. Oh, man. Now I just want to know more. Oh, dang. Alright, so that is the story of Edmund Rockwell on Scorched Earth. I was really interested in following his storyline. Matter of fact, I think I may want to follow a few more. So, hey, if you guys like the episode, make sure that you click that like button. I really appreciate it. Really helps me out. And also, special thank you to my Patreon supporters and everybody who helps me able to do this. I really appreciate you. You guys are awesome. Take it easy, everybody.